What is up, gangsters? And welcome back to another episode. Big camera review day today. Also, it's been a minute. It's good to see you. Today we're going to be reviewing my brand new Canon EOS R6 Mark II for both videography and photography. You will not want to miss this one. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Either way, drop a like. All the sample footage and photos that you see in this video are from a recent small town photography trip that I took to really put this camera to the test for you guys. So we'll have plenty of photo and video content to study here. Let's dive right in with photography and basic specs first. Quick disclaimer, I am using a Canon EF to RF lens adapter because Canon's RF lenses are just offensively expensive. This camera was officially released in the US on November 29th, 2022. And it's obviously the second generation of the first R6, which came out in July of 2020. It currently costs $2,499 US for the camera body, battery, and battery charger only. It's a full-frame camera with an actual megapixel count of 25.6, but the effective megapixel count is 24.2. That 1.4 megapixel count difference could be like an industry standard thing, but I don't know, it kind of just feels like some dumb Canon shit. And we're shooting images in 6000 by 4000. ISO range is 100 to 102,400 in manual, and in auto mode it's 50 to 204,800. That seems like a lot. We can shoot in JPEG, RAW, and Canon RAW image formats at a 14-bit depth. High speed shooting. You get 12 frames per second mechanically with this camera and 40 frames per second electronically, so basically you get 12. It's all good though. 12 is plenty for the work that I do. But wait, there's actually a little bit more high frame rate shooting nonsense to talk about. The R6 Mark II has a raw burst mode, which is supposed to be able to shoot raw photos in 30 frames per second. Huge but here. When using this mode, the camera basically produces one large raw file of your entire burst. Reviewing it on the actual camera is pretty odd too.
What's up, fam? It's Nick in editing, and I want to elaborate a little bit more on the raw burst mode thing. I'm certain the idea is that this feature is for people who use a lot of burst photography. I don't, but you know, if you're a wildlife photographer and you have unpredictable animals, or you're a sports photographer and you just don't quite know what's going to happen, so you just kind of spray and pray, then you go back and look through your photos and you select one that you want. I find this feature comes up a little bit short because this is something you do in editing, like on your computer, you select the photo that you want. But with raw burst mode, I'm pretty sure you have to do that on the camera. Select the one you want, and then that photo will go to your SD card, and then you can edit it on your computer. All right, I hope that makes sense. I know there's nothing more fun than listening to somebody explain super obscure camera features, but just wait till we get to the ProRes RAW section.
I won't be using this feature anyways, because just to use it, you have to enable it every single time you turn the camera on and off, which is a non-starter for me. We do have some development in the autofocus department, I think. So with the camera, we now have autofocus options of regular auto, people, animals, and cars. You get access to these autofocus features in both video and photo. Canon's autofocus is world-class, don't get me wrong, but I think they might be just naming one great feature for different things to give consumers the idea that they're getting more for their value. Like, the autofocus is amazing, but if you're a wildlife photographer or an automotive photographer, definitely don't buy this camera thinking that these autofocus features are going to be like a cheat code in your industry. That being said, the autofocus is killer overall, so who cares what they call it. Ooh, another big development here is focus peaking. We now have access to focus peaking for both video and photo. I've never had this in a mirrorless camera before, and I am really happy to see it. I'm a big focus peaking guy with my regular video cameras, and I've never had it before in a mirrorless camera, so I'm really happy to see this. I do wish that the red peaking markings were a little bit more prominent on the image overall. Like, if you have focus peaking, you want to be able to see it on your viewfinder. That's the whole point in having it, but still, I'm just happy to have it. Nice job, Canon! And that's kind of all I have for the interesting photography specs. To be clear, I really like the photos this camera produces. They're a little on the digital side aesthetically, but that's an easy fix in post-production editing. The colors look great, noise is very low, dynamic range is good, and basically I have plenty of image latitude to edit with megapixel wise. So should you buy the Canon EOS R6 Mark II for photography? Nah. Well, not if photography is all you do professionally with no video work at all. We'll dive into video specs in a minute, but I think that this camera is probably just too expensive to buy, like for photography work only. I mean, given its photography specs on paper, there's probably better options out there for the money. Don't get me wrong, this camera can make great product, lifestyle, family, portraits, or whatever kind of photography you like to do, but I don't think it's a good enough $2,500 photo only camera. Remember, that price I was talking about is for the body only, so guess how many photos you're gonna be able to take if you can't afford a lens. But that's okay, because the video specs are what really matters. I mean, this is YouTube after all, not freaking photo. So let's dive right into video specs next. We're shooting 10-bit internal video with options for standard and light IPB. Let's go ahead and just get frame rate talk out of the way, because let's be honest, that is the most depressing part of any Canon camera review. So with the R6 Mark II, you can shoot up to 4K Ultra HD in 24, 30, and 60p. That is 38 by 40 by 2160, which Canon says is actually 6K oversampled, and I think Canon's lying about that, but I just don't know how to prove it. Anyway, HD frame rates are a little sexier at 24, 30, 60, 120, and 180p. Your slow motion options obviously being 120 and 180p, but again, only in HD. From what I could tell, the only real swing at an actual frame rate upgrade is the 180p in HD versus the old R6. Overall, it's really just a confusingly nothing move on Canon's part. I mean, help me out here. It's like Canon knew that they had to justify a Mark II design, but they didn't know which frame rates and image resolution combos would be the most useless? Okay, C-Log 3. More like P-Log 3. Okay, with this camera you can shoot in C-Log 3, which technically gives you the most dynamic range that this camera can offer. If you're shooting outside during the day and you want to use C-Log 3, I say go right ahead. Your image will be great and should color grade well enough to make it worth your time. Just make sure to expose the image a little brighter than you normally would when you're looking at it on the back of your camera. Shooting interiors in C-Log 3 is a little bit trickier in my experience. To put it simply, C-Log 3 needs a lot of light, or else things can get pretty noisy. So when you're shooting your interiors, make sure you have strong light sources available and, again, overexpose the image you see on the camera screen. If you're shooting your interiors and you underexpose your image, you're probably going to have to reshoot it. It'll be that noisy. But work with it a little bit, and if you expose it correctly, it should color grade just fine. I personally think the camera's default video image with the neutral color profile looks just as good or better for way less work. Okay, a couple quick things on internal image stabilization here. With the R6 Mark II, we have 3 different levels of image stabilization provided in the camera. And with each level that you select, the image crops in on itself to help itself with that task. It works all right if you're in a pinch and you need to grab just some handheld shots. I also had my Sigma Art 24-70 f2.8 optical stabilization on for these shots. I have a sneaking suspicion that this camera's IBIS is a little bit low tier when you compare it to other cameras. And to be fair, this camera stabilization might be better if you paired it with an actual RF stabilized lens. But also, to be fair, those lenses just cost way too much money. And if I really need smooth footage, I'm gonna use a gimbal or a slider or tripod or a monopod or something. It's all good. Oh boy, okay, let's move it along and talk about ProRes RAW next. Man, this sucks, so let's just get on with it. So with the R6 Mark II, you can now record ProRes RAW in 6K up to 60p as well as 3.7K with a crop to an external recording monitor. Also, Canon says record to an external monitor, but they might as well just call the company by name. They mean ATOMOS' line of Ninja monitors. For me, initially anyways, this was one of the main reasons I wanted to buy this camera at all. I already shoot with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and it spits out a great ProRes RAW image. And I already own a Ninja 5 monitor with an SSD. I'd finally have the perfect gimbal camera to image match my cinema rig camera on set. When I'm shooting, I could leave a camera on sticks and have a camera already balanced on a gimbal and ready to fly whenever I need it. I had it all figured out, baby, and this would be the perfect system for my workflow. But I was wrong. First off, I had the older Ninja 5, which would only get me 30p when what I was going to really end up needing would be the Ninja 5 Plus to get 60p. I contacted ATOMOS and they said I still could get ProRes RAW out of this camera with my Ninja 5, but only after a firmware update that they actually didn't even have a date for at the time. They said it would be in like a month or so. I contacted ATOMOS again just last week and they said that there was still no firmware update available. So at the recording of this video, there still is no ProRes RAW option for this camera, at least not to any ATOMOS branded stuff. And keep in mind, that was firmware that you're gonna need for the Ninja 5 and 5 Plus. So moral of the story, I am currently not able to shoot in ProRes RAW. And honestly, I'm gonna probably have to buy a Ninja 5 Plus to get my 60p out of this camera because I like to use that when I'm using my gimbals. Also, I have I think it's a Western Digital SSD right now, and I'm almost positive that's not gonna be fast enough to get the 6K ProRes RAW from this camera to the monitor. I'm probably gonna need to buy like an Angel Bird or something like that. So cost-wise, to get that ProRes RAW out of this camera, I'm probably gonna have to invest at least another $1,000 or more. Not happening right now. That's just called a bad business decision. But hopefully all that makes sense. I know the ProRes RAW stuff is a little confusing and it's certainly annoying, so just let me know if you have any questions at all in the comments about that. Okay, let's talk about some good things that Canon did with the R6 for video shooters. This camera can finally shoot longer than 30-minute continuous video. According to Canon, you can now shoot continuously in HD for up to 6 hours. You can also continuously record HD in 180p for up to 60 minutes or more. I'm not really sure why anyone would want to do that, but there you go. But now we can record 4K 60p up to 50 minutes or more, which is actually pretty useful. Although I suspect if you're shooting somewhere warm, the camera might overheat on you if you're shooting 4K 60 that long. To be fair, this camera has shown no signs of overheating on me. Although if you're shooting in 4K, the camera gives you an immediate temperature warning every time you turn the camera on. Not a great sign there. We do get false color and zebras on this camera now, which is objectively helpful for filmmakers. I know a lot of folks probably won't use those features as much, but they are two in-camera features that could help make your image look better, so I'm just happy to see them.
That concludes business. Little Ricky, wrap it up. Raise them up, boys. Opa!
So who is this camera for? I would recommend this camera for professionals who do videography work primarily, but also some photography work, which, wouldn't you know it, that's what I do. If you're making content just for fun, I would probably not buy this camera just for cost alone. Remember, this thing is $2,500 for the body alone, so no lens, no other accessories that you're gonna actually need to make stuff. And again, if you're a working photographer who doesn't do any video work, I would still probably pass on this camera. Is this a good camera for YouTube? Oh yeah, most definitely. It's probably a little overkill features wise, but if you have the extra funds, go right ahead. This camera won't have any weaknesses that will keep you from making great YouTube content. I don't know if it's the perfect YouTube camera, but it can't be too far off. The good thing in my situation is the camera is strong enough to handle both professional work and YouTube work, which is perfect. The ProRes RAW stuff is a mess, but I kind of look at it as a long-term kind of ceiling raising feature. In truth, the 6K ProRes RAW might actually be a game changer when the firmware update is available and when I can afford the Ninja 5 Plus and a faster SSD. But it's not a current production need for me, it's just a want. Overall, this is a great camera and I plan on making great work with it. But I'm not gonna stand up on a chair and clap for Canon and make you feel like you should buy their stuff. Canon overall still innovates sideways and sometimes backwards, but also, man, fuck all these camera companies. For real. Remember, you are the vessel that art passes through. This is just a tool. It's not special. The world desperately needs the art that you'll make, not the stuff that you'll buy. The truth is, if Canon, Panasonic, Fuji, Sony, if all these camera companies never made a new camera starting today, great art would still flow just fine without ever missing a beat. Anywho, that's all I have for you today. I hope you found this review helpful. I enjoyed making it for you, and I also enjoyed making fun of Canon for a little while. I'm trying a little bit of a different, setup for my YouTube videos here, so let me know what you think. Also, let me know if you have any questions at all in the comments about the new Canon EOS R6 Mark II. Be sure to like and subscribe, or you owe me 10 push-ups.